Rain hammered against the windshield, a relentless drumbeat that made the world outside blur into streaks of gray and silver. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white, as the old truck skidded over the slick asphalt. Every instinct in me screamed to slow down. But I was already late. Late for the one night I had promised myself I wouldn't spend running from memories that refused to fade. Thunder cracked overhead, the kind of raw, splitting sound that seemed to reach into your bones, and I flinched. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural growl, almost drowned by the storm, yet unmistakable. It came from the woods lining the side of the highway, a place I should have ignored, a place I should have kept driving past, but something in the sound rooted me to the spot. My heart hammered in tandem with the storm, a mix of fear and something else, curiosity. The growl came again, closer this time, sharper, like a warning. I squinted through the rain, trying to see, and then I saw him, or rather a figure. Wet, hunched, and strangely human, but not quite. He moved with a fluid grace that no ordinary man possessed, muscles rippling under drenched clothing. His eyes caught the dim light of the truck's headlights, golden, luminous, and terrifyingly intense. For a heartbeat, my mind raced through every possible explanation. Drunk? Runaway? Homeless? But the animalistic tilt of his head, the growl curling in the back of his throat, nothing human could move like that, and yet there was a vulnerability there, too. He looked cold, hungry, lost. Instinct overrode reason. I pressed my foot to the brake, skidding to a stop a few meters away from him. Rain soaked me through instantly as I opened the truck door, my boots slipping in the mud. "Hey!" I shouted, voice barely carrying over the storm. "Are you okay?" He froze, eyes narrowing, hair, alert. His chest heaved with heavy breaths that weren't just human. For a moment, I wondered if I'd made a mistake, standing here in the pouring rain facing something I didn't understand. But then, his eyes softened. Just slightly. Enough to make me step closer despite every warning my body screamed. "You shouldn't be out here," I said, my voice shaking as much from adrenaline as from cold. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tilted his head, examining me, nostrils flaring as if sniffing something invisible. Then he stepped forward. Not aggressively, but cautiously, like a predator deciding whether to trust. I can't stay," he said finally, voice low, almost a growl underneath the words. But the English was clear. Human. "You're soaked," I said, shivering. "Come with me." "My truck, warm, dry, you can figure things out from there." He hesitated. And in that pause, I saw it. The hint of a wounded soul, something broken beneath the wildness, and my chest tightened. Without thinking, I opened the passenger door. "Please, just for a little while." He studied me, those piercing eyes measuring every inch of me, every intention. And then, reluctantly, he climbed in. Water dripped from his hair, soaking the seat beneath him, but he didn't complain. He just sat, shoulders tense, and stared out the window, silent. I started the truck and eased back onto the road, trying not to stare at him, though it was impossible. His presence filled the space, magnetic, unsettling, and, strangely, familiar, like some half-remembered dream I couldn't place. "Do you live around here?" I asked finally, trying to fill the silence. "No," he replied shortly, still not looking at me. I bit my lip. Not exactly a conversation starter, but it was something. "Then, where are you going?" "Anywhere," he said, voice rough. "Away from—" He trailed off, jaw tightening, eyes flicking briefly to mine, and then he looked away again. The storm roared around us, windows rattling. I felt a strange pull in my chest, an instinct I didn't understand. He was dangerous, undeniably so, but not in a way that made me want to run. In fact, the opposite. I wanted to protect him, even if I didn't know why. Finally, after what felt like eternity, he looked at me. Really looked, and I saw it. Pain, loneliness, something raw, something primal. "I don't have anywhere to go," he admitted, voice almost a whisper. The words were heavy, each one carrying a weight that made my own past ache alongside it. I swallowed hard. I knew loss. I knew running. I knew hiding from the world. And something deep inside me, a spark, a dangerous curiosity, told me that this man, this creature, was like me. Or maybe he was what I didn't know I wanted. Then, "You can come with me," I said finally, surprising even myself. "Just for tonight. Just until the storm passes." He tilted his head again, a flicker of caution in his golden eyes. Then finally a small, almost imperceptible nod. The rest of the ride was quiet. But beneath the silence, tension hummed, a strange electricity that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. Every so often I caught him watching me out of the corner of his eye, calculating, probing, and I realized with a jolt that I was doing the same to him. I didn't know it yet, but this encounter would change everything. The way his presence filled the truck, the way he moved, the way he seemed to sense my own hidden scars. It was as if fate had deliberately thrown him into my path. A howl ripped through the storm, startling me. It was close. Too close. My heart leapt. He stiffened beside me, head snapping toward the sound. His body tensed, muscles coiled like a spring. "Shh," I said instinctively. "It's okay." But it wasn't, and neither of us knew it yet, but that sound was only the beginning. The world I thought I knew, the safe, mundane life I clung to, was already slipping away. And this man, this mysterious, wild, and broken creature, was the key to a world I was only beginning to understand. Somewhere deep in the woods, eyes glowed in the darkness. The storm couldn't hide them, nor could the rain wash away the sense of danger that clung to the night. But neither could it hide the undeniable pull between us, the magnetism that whispered of fates entwined, of a connection that defied logic, and of a destiny I wasn't ready to face. But already couldn't escape, and as the truck wound through the twisting forest road, the howl repeated, this time closer, louder, more insistent. He didn't flinch, but I did, and in that moment I understood. I had just found a homeless Lycan, and somehow I was already his mate. The cabin appeared out of nowhere, like a fragment of a dream materializing in the forest. Its weathered logs glistened with rain, windows fogged and yellowed with age. I had driven blindly down a narrow dirt path, relying on instinct more than sight, and somehow, miraculously, it had led me here. "Here," I said, pointing at the small porch. "You can stay here until morning. It's warm, dry, you'll be safe." He didn't respond. He only stepped out of the truck, the rain streaming down his clothes, hair plastered to his skull. His movements were fluid, precise, almost predatory. But there was no aggression, only a strange, tense energy. I opened the cabin door and held it for him. He hesitated a heartbeat too long, then entered, scanning the interior. The cabin smelled faintly of wood smoke and damp earth. Dust motes floated in the lamplight, and the furniture was simple but sturdy. "I'll make a fire," I said, rubbing my arms to chase away the chill. "You need to warm up." "Sit anywhere. I'll figure things out." He settled near the fireplace, knees drawn to his chest, hands clasped tightly together. I caught the subtle twitch of his jaw, the slight flare of his nostrils, and knew he was studying me as closely as I was studying him. "What's your name?" I asked tentatively, starting the fire with trembling fingers. The logs hissed as flames licked the edges, and heat pushed the damp cold back. He didn't answer. I hesitated, unsure whether to press. Then I said, softer this time, "You can tell me." I won't hurt you," he finally spoke, voice low, rough, almost a growl. "Call me Kale. Kale." The name was like a blade of ice sliding over my chest, sharp, precise, and yet somehow grounding. It fit him. A man who belonged somewhere between the wild and the human, between danger and something achingly vulnerable. I studied him as I worked, trying not to stare. His wet clothes clung to him, revealing the contours of his body, muscles taut and controlled like a panther ready to spring, but also scars, faint lines across his forearms and collarbone. Evidence of battles fought, of life endured. "Where were you living?" I asked cautiously. "Before the storm?" He flinched at the question, eyes flicking to mine briefly, then away. "Everywhere and nowhere," he said finally. "I move. Sleep where I can. Eat what I can find." My chest tightened. I had known loss, desperation, running from a past that refused to let go. I could feel the loneliness radiating from him, raw and unpolished. And despite every instinct screaming caution, I wanted to help him, needed to help him, because something deep inside recognized what I could not yet name. I handed him a towel. "Dry off. There are blankets in the corner. I'll make something to eat." "You have to be starving." He accepted the towel with a nod, eyes avoiding mine. His movements were careful, deliberate, almost as if he were trying to remain unseen, unnoticed. I caught him glancing at the shadows in the cabin, muscles tensing, and I realized he was alert to every flicker, every creak, the way a wild animal senses danger that humans can't. I placed a small pot over the fire and filled it with water, letting it heat while I searched for something in the small pantry. Canned soup, stale bread, and some tea. Not much, but enough. Kale watched me silently, eyes narrowing and widening with curiosity or suspicion. "Don't worry, I said softly, trying to ease the tension. I won't ask questions you don't want to answer. Just eat. Warm up, that's all. He finally allowed himself a small sigh, shoulders relaxing slightly. The tension in the room eased, though not entirely. There was something in him, something unspoken, that hummed with restraint. And I knew instinctively that it wasn't just physical strength, it was power, something he had to hold back. I set the pot on the fire and gestured to a chair. Sit, I'll pour. He did reluctantly, keeping his back straight, hands resting on his knees. His golden eyes followed every movement, studying me, measuring. I poured hot soup into a chipped bowl and slid it toward him. Steam curled between us, carrying warmth, and perhaps something more, a fragile trust that had begun to form, thin as spider silk, but surprisingly resilient. You... I started, then stopped, unsure of what to say. The words stuck in my throat, a mix of curiosity and fear. You're not like anyone I've ever met. Kael's eyes flicked up, sharp as a knife, then softened. I'm not, he admitted, voice low. And you shouldn't be here. Not with me. Why not? I asked, heart pounding. I'm already here. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lowered his gaze, taking a slow, careful sip of the soup. The sound of it was oddly human, grounding, and yet every movement radiated a tension I couldn't ignore. There was an edge to him, a wildness that simmered just beneath the surface. The night deepened outside, the storm finally easing into a steady rain, a rhythmic whisper against the cabin walls. And as the warmth of the fire spread through my fingers and toes, I realized I was no longer thinking about the storm outside or the world I had left behind. I was focused entirely on him. On Kael, I began again, quieter this time, almost a whisper. You're hurt? Not just physically. I can feel it, he froze. His hands stilled over the bowl. Golden eyes met mine, sharp, intense. Then slowly he nodded. I've been running for a long time, he admitted, voice rough but steady. Some things don't let you rest. Some things you can't outrun. The weight in his words pressed against my chest. I knew the ache he carried. I knew the shadows that followed, relentless and unforgiving. And yet there was something in his admission, a crack in the armor, that made me want to reach out, to break through whatever barrier he had erected around himself. I moved a little closer, careful to give him space. You're not alone tonight, I said softly. Not anymore. You don't have to be. He looked at me then, really looked, and the vulnerability in his gaze made my pulse spike. A flicker of something unguarded passed through him, something raw and human, and I felt an ache I couldn't name, a pull I couldn't resist. Then the howl came again, low, urgent, closer than before. Kael stiffened immediately, muscles coiling beneath damp clothes. His hand twitched toward the edge of the table as if he could feel the presence even before it revealed itself. I froze, heart hammering. It's outside? I whispered. He didn't answer. His eyes narrowed, sharp and predatory as he listened. Then almost imperceptibly, his head tilted, ears or hair, flicking as if catching sounds I couldn't even hear. Kael, I said, voice trembling. What is happening? He finally met my eyes, golden and glowing even in the firelight. Something is coming, he said quietly, almost a warning. Something dangerous. And you're not safe here. Not yet, I swallowed, every nerve alive with fear and anticipation. The storm may have passed, but a far greater danger had arrived, and somehow, I knew that danger was tied to him, to the world he belonged to but refused to show me entirely. And I also knew this. Whatever he was, whatever he had been running from, I was already in too deep. There was no turning back. Not from him. Not from the pull I felt deep in my chest. A magnetism I couldn't explain. Tonight, Kael had taken shelter in my cabin, but it was clear I had just crossed a threshold into a world I could never leave, and a fate I could not escape. The night stretched on, the fire crackling softly, shadows dancing across the walls. Outside, eyes glowed in the darkness, waiting, and inside an unspoken bond began to form, fragile, dangerous, undeniable. I didn't yet know what he was, but I was already his. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the forest glistening under a pale, trembling moon. Mist curled between the trees like fingers, and the scent of wet earth and pine filled the cabin, carrying an almost intoxicating wildness. I sat on the edge of the bed, wrapping my arms around my knees, stealing glances at Kael. He sat by the fire, shoulders tense even as the warmth enveloped him. I could feel him watching me too, always watching, Always aware, but now there was something different. Something closer, more deliberate. The tension in his posture hinted at secrets, ones I was not supposed to uncover yet. And yet my curiosity refused to stay quiet. "Kyle," I began, voice soft, almost a whisper. I don't know anything about you, really, but I feel like I should." He stiffened, the muscles in his jaw tightening. For a moment, his golden eyes, glowing faintly in the firelight, flickered with something I couldn't place. Anger? Fear? Or a warning? "You don't," he said finally, voice low, measured. "Some things humans can't understand, and some things can't be explained." I swallowed hard. "Try me," I said, voice firmer than I expected. "I'm not just any human. I've survived things you wouldn't believe, and I can handle truths." His eyes studied me for a long, intense moment, as if weighing whether to trust me or warn me away. Then slowly, he exhaled, a breath that seemed to release a little of the tension coiled inside him. "Tonight is not safe," he admitted finally. "Not because of me, but because of what's out there, what follows me." The words sent a shiver down my spine. What followed him? Wolves? Hunters? Or something even darker? And yet I was drawn to him, not despite the danger, but because of it. I moved closer to the fire, letting the warmth seep into my frozen fingers. "You don't have to answer everything now," I said softly. "But something tells me you need me here, whether you admit it or not." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Need is complicated, dangerous." I tilted my head, curiosity prickling. "Everything about you is dangerous. That's why I'm still here. And somehow, I don't regret it." For a heartbeat, he simply stared at me, and then something shifted in the room, a subtle change in the air, like the calm before a storm. His pupils dilated slightly, golden eyes flicking toward the window. I followed his gaze, and that's when I noticed it, movement in the shadows beyond the trees. Two faint glimmers of light, like eyes, watching, waiting. "They're close," Cale murmured, voice barely audible. "Closer than I thought." "Who?" I asked, heart thudding in my chest. He shook his head, unwilling to answer. His body tensed, coiled like a spring. I could feel the primal energy radiating from him, a barely contained power that both terrified and captivated me. "I can't stay hidden for long," he said finally, turning his gaze back to me. "And if they find me, if they see you, it'll put you in danger." I felt a strange flutter in my chest. Not fear, not exactly, but a strange thrill, an undeniable pull. "Then let me help," I said softly, reaching out almost instinctively to place a hand near his on the edge of the fire-lit table. "I'm not leaving." "Not while you're here." His eyes softened, just slightly, but the shadow of pain lingered. "You don't know what you're offering." "I do," I said quietly. "I know it's dangerous, but something about you. I can't walk away, and I won't." For a moment, silence fell between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. The crackle of the fire filled the gaps, the gentle hum of the cabin, the faint rustle of leaves outside. And then slowly, Cale reached out. Not to touch me, not yet, but to place a hand near mine on the table. Fingers nearly brushing, an almost imperceptible warmth spreading through me. "Your courage," he murmured almost to himself. "It's rare," I swallowed. "I'm not sure if it's courage or stubbornness," I said softly, trying to tease, but my voice trembled despite my words. A flicker of amusement passed over his face, a ghost of a smile, and my chest ached with something I hadn't expected. Connection, understanding, a spark I couldn't name. But the moment didn't last. The howls came again, this time closer, sharper, unmistakable. Cale's body went rigid. The wolfish edge beneath his human exterior flared, subtle but undeniable. His jaw tightened. Ears, or whatever part of him tuned to the wild, twitched, and his breathing changed, just slightly, enough to make my pulse spike. "Stay here," he said quietly, voice commanding but low. "Don't move." Before I could respond, he was at the door, pulling it open with astonishing speed. Rain-slicked earth met his boots, and then he was gone, disappearing into the mist. I froze, torn between fear and the desperate need to follow. My heart pounded as I strained to hear any sound, anything that would tell me what he was facing. Moments later, he returned, dripping wet, eyes glowing faintly in the firelight, a low growl vibrating from deep within him. He held something small in his arms, a stray dog shivering and soaked. His expression softened as he set it down gently near the fire. "Easy," he murmured, voice rough but tender. "You're safe now." I watched him, breathless. This man, This creature was danger incarnate, yet he moved with care, with compassion. The contradiction pulled at me, binding me in ways I didn't understand. The dog shook itself, sending droplets of water flying, and Cale reached out to stroke its fur, rough fingers surprisingly gentle. And in that quiet, intimate moment, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit. I was falling. Not for the man I thought I knew, but for the wild, enigmatic being who had saved himself and this helpless creature in the same breath. He turned his gaze to me, golden eyes meeting mine, and the air between us crackled with unspoken truths. Danger, attraction, fate, a silent acknowledgement that this night, this storm, had changed everything. You, I began, voice barely above a whisper. You're not just human, are you? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked away, jaw tight, and finally muttered, Some truths are harder to bear than lies. The fire crackled again, shadows dancing across the walls, and I realized I didn't care. I wanted to know. I needed to know. Whatever Cale was, whatever danger he carried, I could not turn away. Not now. Not ever. Outside, the forest whispered, alive with movement and sound, secrets and predators hidden in the mist. And inside, in the small, warm cabin, two souls, one human, one far from ordinary, took the first cautious steps toward trust, toward connection, toward something neither of us could yet name but both already felt. And I knew, deep in my chest, that whatever awaited us in the night, whatever mysteries and threats lurked beyond the firelight, I was no longer just a witness. I was a participant. And Cale, wild, broken, impossibly magnetic Cale, was already part of me. The night stretched on, full of whispers and shadows, and somewhere deep in the forest, eyes glimmered, waiting for the right moment to strike, and I was ready to face it all, for him. Morning came quietly, filtered through the mist and the dripping canopy of the forest. The storm had passed, leaving the world damp and alive with the smell of wet pine and earth. I was already awake, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, listening to the soft crackle of the fire Kyle had left smoldering overnight. The cabin felt fragile, almost unreal, as if it had been conjured just for us. Cale stirred from the corner, moving with a predator's grace even as he tried to look human, and I noticed the first hints of exhaustion etched across his features. Golden eyes caught mine briefly, sharp and unreadable, and then he looked away, busying himself with gathering firewood. You didn't sleep much, I observed quietly, trying to keep my tone neutral. I can't, he admitted, voice low. Too many. Senses awake, I frowned. What do you mean? He hesitated, glancing at me, his jaw tightening. When you live like I do, you notice things humans don't. Sounds, scents, movements. It never stops. Even when you think you're resting, the world keeps talking to you. I nodded slowly, sensing that his words were more than metaphor. There was a wildness about him I didn't fully understand yet, something instinctual, untamed, and dangerous. And even though every rational thought screamed caution, I was drawn to him, magnetized by that very danger. Do you want breakfast? I asked softly, trying to break the tension. He gave a small shake of his head. I'll be fine. I frowned but didn't press. Instead, I watched him move, graceful, almost feline. Every motion was controlled, precise, as if his body existed for more than mere survival. My eyes lingered on him longer than I intended, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks, and then it happened. A noise outside, soft, deliberate, almost impossible to localize, made Cale's body freeze. Muscles coiled, nostrils flaring. His golden eyes glowed faintly as he inhaled sharply, tracking something I couldn't see. What? I began, but he cut me off with a sharp motion. Stay inside. Don't make a sound. Before I could question him further, Kyle was at the door. He moved silently, fluidly, like a shadow in the pale morning light. I strained to hear him, but the only sound was his boots on the wet earth. Then a low, warning growl, deep, resonant, utterly unlike any human voice, rippled through the cabin. My breath caught. I had never heard anything like it. It wasn't a dog, it wasn't a human. It was something else entirely. Something wild. Cale returned moments later, crouching near the window with a wary glance. His chest rose and fell rapidly, eyes scanning the trees. But something in him had changed. The wild, untamed energy had surfaced. And I realized with a jolt that I had just witnessed the first undeniable glimpse of what he truly was. You, I whispered, heart hammering. What are you? He didn't answer immediately, only turned his gaze toward the forest. Then finally he spoke, voice low, almost reverent. Not entirely human, my pulse spiked. Not human, I echoed. Like, a wolf? His golden eyes flickered toward me, sharp and intense. A shifter, he said finally. A Lycan. That's what they call me. The words hung between us, heavy and impossible. My mind spun. The danger, the mystery, the magnetism, it all made sense now, yet somehow made everything more terrifying. I need you to understand something, Kale continued, voice softening slightly. Being what I am, it's not just strength. It's instincts, territory, danger. If they sense me, they will come. And not everyone who comes survives. I swallowed hard, the weight of his confession pressing into my chest. And yet, beneath the fear, beneath the undeniable danger, there was something else, a pull, a connection, a thread binding me to him that I could not explain. You're my mate, he said suddenly, the words spilling out like they had been waiting too long to be spoken. I blinked, caught off guard. Mate? Yes, he said firmly, but not without hesitation. Some bonds? Some fates. Can't be denied. I didn't ask for it. You didn't ask for it, but it's there. You're mine, in a way I can't ignore, and neither can you. My breath hitched. The word mate carried weight, destiny, inevitability, and something terrifyingly intimate. My pulse raced, a mixture of fear, disbelief, and something deeper, something raw. You're insane, I whispered, though part of me wanted it to be true. I barely know you. He stepped closer, eyes never leaving mine. You know me more than you think. I can feel it. You feel it too. I did. I could feel it. The pull in my chest, the rapid beat of my heart, the sudden awareness that he was more than flesh and blood, more than danger, more than human. And yet, there was safety there too, in his strength. In the way he protected without hesitation, in the way he had taken in a shivering stray dog without a second thought. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to close the distance. But fear anchored me in place, trembling with anticipation. Kale, I whispered, voice barely audible. I don't know if I can handle this. He knelt slightly, closing the distance while keeping his hands visible, reassuring. You can. You're stronger than you think, and I won't let anything happen to you, not while I'm here. I swallowed, nodding, heart pounding in a rhythm that matched his own. And for the first time I allowed myself to believe him, not fully, not yet, but enough to take the first step toward trust. A sudden rustle outside snapped both our heads toward the window. Eyes glimmered in the shadows, yellow, predatory, alive. Kale tensed again, coiled like a spring, and a low growl rolled through him, vibrating against the floorboards. They're here, he murmured, voice tense but controlled. And they know, my heart raced. Who? He shook his head. Not safe to say. But you'll see soon enough. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Even the wind stilled, as if waiting for the inevitable clash between what Kyle was and whatever lurked in the shadows. And I realized, with both dread and a strange exhilaration, that I was already in the middle of a world I couldn't run from, and that Kale, the wild, enigmatic, impossible man I had saved, was now irrevocably entwined with my fate. His hand brushed mine briefly, almost imperceptibly, but enough to send a thrill through me that I couldn't deny, and I understood then that this was more than attraction. This was something ancient, something destined, something dangerous. The morning light was pale, the mist curling around the trees like ghostly fingers. But in the cabin, the fire crackled, shadows danced, and two souls, one human, one Lycan, stood on the precipice of a bond that neither could ignore. And outside, eyes watched from the forest, waiting for the right moment to strike. The forest outside the cabin seemed to pulse with life. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs amplified by the tension coiling in the air. Kyle stood by the window, muscles taut, eyes scanning the mist-shrouded trees. I pressed my back against the wall, heart hammering, realizing how fragile the cabin felt in contrast to the predator that had taken shelter in it. They're close, Kale muttered, voice low and controlled, but vibrating with a barely contained power. Closer than I thought. Who are they? I asked, swallowing hard. My fingers clenched the edge of the chair I was sitting on. Kale didn't answer immediately. He tilted his head, nostrils flaring as he inhaled sharply, picking up scents and movements that made my skin prickle. The way he listened, the subtle shift in his stance. It was no longer human. Something ancient and wild had surfaced, and I felt it reverberate through the cabin, through me. They're pack hunters, he said finally. They track me. They don't know you're here, yet. And if they find you, his jaw tightened and his golden eyes darkened with warning. It won't end well. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Pack hunters, predators. I wasn't sure whether to be terrified or exhilarated, but the pull I felt toward him, the unexplainable bond he had awakened, kept me rooted in place. What do we do? I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. Cale's gaze softened briefly as he turned to me. Stay here. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear, no matter what you see. Trust me. I nodded, though my pulse raced with fear and anticipation. I wanted to argue, wanted to help him, but something instinctively told me to obey, to wait, to watch. Minutes stretched, each one heavy with tension. Then the first shadow appeared, slipping between the trees with silent precision. Cale's body tensed, and I could see the subtle shift in his stance, a coiled energy ready to spring. His eyes glimmered, glowing faintly even in the soft morning light filtering through the mist. The shadow paused, sniffing the air, and I realized with a jolt that it wasn't a human moving through the woods. It was something else. Faster, more precise. And as Cale's growl rolled through the cabin, a low, resonant sound that vibrated through my chest, I understood. He was preparing for battle. I clutched the blanket tighter around me, trying to ground myself. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as the second shadow emerged. Larger, more deliberate, eyes reflecting a predatory intelligence. They were circling, assessing, calculating. And Kyle was ready. Stay behind me, he said quietly, moving closer to me. His presence was overwhelming, magnetic, protective. I felt the pull of something ancient and powerful, a bond that transcended fear and logic. The first shadow lunged suddenly, breaking through the mist. Kyle moved with impossible speed, intercepting it before it could reach the cabin. A growl, a flash of movement, and I realized I was witnessing something that defied explanation, strength, agility, and instincts beyond human comprehension. The second shadow followed, and Cale met it with the same fierce precision, controlling his movements with a predator's grace. I could barely keep my eyes on him, mesmerized and terrified in equal measure. Every motion was fluid, lethal, and yet restrained, as if he were holding himself back just enough to protect me. You're incredible, I whispered, almost to myself, my pulse racing not just from fear, but from something deeper, something primal. Cale glanced at me just briefly, and his expression softened. It's not about being incredible, he said lowly. It's about survival, and protecting those I care about. The words struck me in a way I hadn't anticipated. Care, protection, affection hidden beneath the dangerous, wild exterior. And I realized, with a jolt, that I was already entangled in his world in a way I couldn't escape. The battle outside was swift but intense. Shadows collided, growls reverberating through the forest. Cale moved with an almost supernatural precision, dodging, countering, striking, but always with restraint, ensuring no permanent harm came to the intruders. And then, with a final decisive move, he pinned the larger shadow to the ground, teeth bared, eyes glowing, a warning that made the air itself tremble. The shadows hesitated, assessing, and then retreated, slipping back into the mist as silently as they had arrived. The forest fell into tense silence once more. I exhaled shakily, my body trembling. "They're gone?" I asked. Cale remained alert for a long moment, then finally nodded. "For now, but they'll return. And next time, it might not be just me you have to worry about." I swallowed, the reality of his world settling over me like a heavy cloak. Danger, unpredictability, creatures and rules beyond human comprehension, and yet, despite everything, I felt a fierce pull toward him, a need to stay, to understand, to trust. He turned to me then, shoulders relaxing slightly. "You're safe for now," he said softly. "But I can't promise it will stay that way. You have to be prepared." "I don't care," I whispered. "I'm not leaving, not you, not now." His eyes softened, just for a moment, and then he looked away, jaw tight, as if resisting a temptation he could not deny. "You're braver than most," he admitted, "and stubborn. That will get you hurt, but I respect it. I respect you." The moment was fragile, a thin thread of connection amidst the tension and danger, and I realized, with a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold, that this bond, the pull between us, the inexplicable draw, was becoming undeniable. Cale moved closer to the window again, scanning the forest while I kept my gaze on him, memorizing every detail, the way his muscles moved under taut skin, the way his eyes glowed faintly even without the storm. the raw strength tempered by a strange tenderness. I began, voice hesitant. You don't have to face this alone, you know. I want to help. Somehow. He looked at me then, golden eyes piercing, intense, and I felt exposed and connected all at once. Some things, he said quietly, can't be shared. Some battles are mine alone, but having you here. He trailed off, eyes softening. It makes a difference. I nodded, understanding him without needing words. And in that silent acknowledgement, the fragile trust between us deepened, threaded with unspoken desires, fear, and the growing awareness that our fates were entwined. The forest held its secrets. The shadows lurked just beyond the mist. And Kale's world, wild, dangerous, and utterly enthralling, stretched before me. But for the first time, I didn't feel fear that would make me run. I felt something else, belonging, connection, and the undeniable pull of a destiny I could no longer ignore. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, what threats would emerge from the forest, or what truths Kale would be forced to reveal. But I did know one thing with absolute certainty: I was not leaving. Not now. Not ever. The sun struggled to break through the mist, casting a pale light across the cabin. Inside, the fire crackled, shadows danced, and two lives, one human, one Lycan, stood on the edge of a bond that neither could deny, neither could resist, and neither could escape. And outside, in the forest, eyes glimmered, watching, waiting, plotting their return. The forest was quiet now, almost eerily so. The mist had begun to thin, revealing glimpses of the jagged tree line against the pale morning sky. Inside the cabin, the fire had burned low, leaving only a smoldering glow. Kyle sat near it, elbows on his knees, staring into the flames as though they held answers to questions neither of us had asked yet. I hesitated, unsure whether to disturb him, but the pull I felt toward him was stronger than my caution. I moved closer, careful to give him space, my heart hammering in rhythm with the smoldering embers. I began softly, unsure how to frame the question that had been burning in my mind since yesterday. You said something about a pack, about hunters, about rules. I need to understand. If I'm going to stay, if I'm going to trust you, I need to know what I'm part of. Kale's golden eyes flicked to me, guarded, but not unkind. He exhaled slowly, as though weighing how much he could reveal. Not everything is safe for human ears, he said quietly. And yet, I sense you won't leave, no matter what I say. So, I'll tell you what I can. But you have to promise me something. Anything, I whispered. Promise me you'll listen. Not just hear, but listen. And you won't judge what you don't understand. Not yet, I nodded solemnly. I promise. He leaned back, muscles coiled, and began, voice low, almost reverent. Lycanthropes are bound by the old rules. Bloodlines, territory, hierarchy. Our packs aren't just social, they're survival. A shifter alone is prey even if they don't realize it. And some packs, some families, are relentless in enforcing the rules, punishing those who stray. I swallowed hard. So the hunters outside, they're part of this? Kale shook his head. Not exactly. They're rogue. They broke the laws of the old ways. They hunt for power, not survival. But their instincts, their senses are sharp. And they've been tracking me for months. The weight of his words settled over me, heavy and suffocating. Why you? I asked, almost trembling. Why would they care about you? He hesitated, jaw tightening, and then finally muttered, Because I'm marked, chosen, cursed, if you want to call it that. I carry something in my blood that some would kill for or fear. The words made my chest tighten. Chosen, cursed, dangerous. And yet, something in the way he spoke, the quiet ferocity in his golden eyes, made me feel both terrified and inexplicably drawn to him. Kyle, I said softly, I don't care about curses or bloodlines. I care about you. He froze at my words, the firelight reflecting off his intense gaze. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd overstepped. Thought I'd startled him too much, but then something shifted. His lips curved just slightly, almost imperceptibly, a ghost of a smile. You have no idea what that means, he whispered. To hear that from someone human. Most would run. Most would fear. I'm not most people, I said firmly, and I won't run. Not from you, not from this. The tension in him eased, just a fraction, though the shadows in his eyes remained. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees again, and inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring as though catching scents invisible to me. I can't promise this world will ever be safe for you, he said quietly. But I can promise I'll protect you as long as I live. That's all I can do. I moved closer, emboldened by the honesty in his voice. "That's enough," I said softly. "That's more than enough." For a moment, we simply sat there, the silence between us comfortable, charged with something unspoken, a fragile trust, a growing bond, and the undeniable pull of destiny. And then the forest whispered again. A low rustle, almost inaudible, came from beyond the misted tree line. Cale stiffened immediately, muscles coiling, senses on high alert. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, sharp and predatory. "They're back," he murmured. "Closer, and this time, it won't just be reconnaissance." My stomach dropped. "We're not ready for them." He glanced at me, jaw tight, then gave the faintest nod. "We'll be ready. I'll make sure of it. But you? You must stay here. You can't fight them. Not yet. And you can't run either. Running only makes it worse." I swallowed hard, nodding, though fear rippled through me. I wanted to argue, to help, to be part of whatever was coming. But instinct told me to obey, to trust him. Cale moved toward the door, silent as the shadows outside, and I felt my pulse quicken. He paused, turning back to me. Golden eyes softened with something I couldn't name. Affection, concern, longing. "Stay inside," he said quietly. "And thank you for trusting me already. I don't deserve it." "You do," I said softly. "At least some of it." He gave a ghost of a smile, then slipped out into the forest. The door closed softly behind him, leaving me alone with the fire, the mist, and the tension that hummed through the cabin like a living thing. Minutes stretched into eternity. I could hear the distant rustle of leaves, the faint snap of twigs, the occasional low growl echoing through the mist. And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I was part of his world now, whether I was ready or not. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt distorted in the cabin, measured only by the shifting light through the fogged windows. Then, just as my nerves were fraying, the door opened quietly. Cale stepped back inside, rain-slick and mud-streaked but victorious. "They've been driven off, for now," he said quietly, eyes scanning me before settling on mine. "But they'll return, stronger, smarter, and they'll bring others." I swallowed, chest tight. "I'll be ready. With you." His gaze softened again, a rare vulnerability flickering across his sharp features. "You don't know what that means," he whispered. "Being with me, it will change your life, and not all of it will be safe." "I don't care," I said, heart pounding. "I've already chosen. I'm not leaving." For a long moment he simply studied me, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Then finally he reached out, brushing a damp strand of hair from my face with surprising gentleness. "You're reckless," he said softly. "And brave. Too brave for your own good." "And you're impossible," I whispered back, the words carrying more than teasing. They carried the truth I could feel deep in my chest. Cale's lips twitched into the faintest of smiles. "Maybe," he admitted. "But somehow, I don't mind." The fire crackled between us, shadows dancing across the walls as the mist outside curled like a living thing. And I realized, with a thrill that sent shivers through me, that this bond, dangerous, wild, and utterly intoxicating, was only beginning. Whatever the forest held, whatever threats lurked just beyond the cabin walls, I was already entwined in Cale's world, and there was no turning back. For the first time, I didn't want to. Night fell like a velvet curtain over the forest, swallowing the tree line in inky darkness. The cabin, once a refuge, now felt exposed, fragile against the wilderness that seemed alive with unseen eyes. The fire flickered, casting dancing shadows across the wooden walls. While I sat on the edge of the bed, hands clenched in my lap, heart hammering with every snap of a twig outside. Cale stood by the window, silhouette rigid, golden eyes scanning the blackness. His presence was magnetic, powerful, and terrifying all at once. Even now the air seemed to hum around him, charged with an energy that made my skin prickle. "They'll come tonight," he murmured, voice low, almost reverent in its intensity. "And when they do, we need to be ready. You must stay inside, no matter what." "I know," I whispered, though my pulse thumped wildly. "But Cale," my voice faltered, "I'm not just going to hide. Not anymore." He turned slowly, muscles coiled like a predator about to strike. "This isn't a game. They're not human. They'll hurt you without hesitation." "I trust you," I said softly, taking a tentative step closer. "And I trust myself to be here with you." Cale's eyes softened briefly, the dangerous edge receding for a fraction of a heartbeat. Then he exhaled sharply, a sound that seemed to release some of the tension coiling in his body. "You're reckless," he said, voice rough. "But I can't fault you for it." "Not completely." We were still speaking in low tones when the first attack came. A series of sharp raps echoed through the cabin walls, followed by a forceful shove against the door. The wood groaned, splintered, and I gasped, clutching the blanket around me. "They've found us!" Cale growled, moving to the door with unnatural speed. In a heartbeat, he had flung it open, and the shadows of two massive figures loomed in the doorway. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim firelight, predatory, calculating. Before I could react, Kyle shifted. The transformation was fluid, terrifying, and mesmerizing. His form elongated, muscles rippling beneath taut skin. Golden eyes burned like coals, claws extending with a sharp metallic snap. His human voice was gone, replaced by a low, resonant growl that vibrated through my chest. I stumbled back, awe and fear mixing in equal measure. This was the Cale I had glimpsed before, the wild, untamed power he had hinted at, unleashed in its rawest form. The intruders hesitated, clearly taken aback by the sheer intensity of his presence. Cale's movements were a blur, a dance of lethal precision as he intercepted the first attacker. A single swipe of his clawed hand sent one staggering backward, crashing into a tree with a sickening thud. The other circled, wary now, sensing that this fight was no longer one-sided. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. Fear gripped me, but beneath it, a strange exhilaration surged, an undeniable thrill that came from witnessing him in his element, alive in a way no human could comprehend. Kyle growled again, a sound that carried both warning and promise. His movements were precise, controlled, yet utterly fluid. He didn't strike to kill, at least not yet, but his presence was enough to dominate, to intimidate, to assert territory. "Kyle," I whispered, voice trembling. "Be careful." He glanced at me briefly, eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "I will protect you," he growled. "No matter what." The first intruder lunged again, misjudging Cale's speed. With a swift, graceful motion, Cale knocked him to the ground, teeth bared in a display of raw power. The second attacker hesitated, evaluating, and then retreated, disappearing into the shadows as silently as they had arrived. The forest fell into tense silence once more, broken only by Kyle's heavy breathing. Slowly, he shifted back to his human form, claws retracting, body returning to the familiar, guarded man I had come to know. His golden eyes softened as they met mine, though the traces of the predator lingered. You're incredible," I whispered, voice barely audible. "I've never seen anything like that." Cale shook his head, a faint humorless smile tugging at his lips. "You shouldn't have seen that," he said quietly. "Some things humans aren't meant to witness. But you're different. Somehow you belong here." I swallowed hard, heart still racing. "I belong with you," I said softly. The words slipped out before I could stop them, carrying all the weight of my growing feelings. He froze, gaze locking onto mine, and for a long moment, the cabin felt suspended in time. The danger outside, the shadows in the forest, the rules of his world, all of it faded into the background, leaving only the unspoken connection between us. "You," he murmured, voice low, rough with emotion. "You shouldn't feel this." "Not yet, and yet." He trailed off, jaw tight, as if resisting the pull he clearly felt. "I don't care about yet," I said softly. "I care about now. About you. About us." For a heartbeat, his eyes softened, vulnerability flickering behind the golden intensity. Then he stepped closer, brushing a damp strand of hair from my face with surprising gentleness. "You're reckless, brave, impossible, and I can't resist it," he whispered. My pulse thundered in my chest. "Kyle," I began, but words failed me. All I could do was reach out, letting my hand brush against his, feeling the warmth, the connection, the undeniable pull of something neither of us could name, but both could feel. He leaned down slightly, voice barely above a whisper. "You belong here, with me, and I'll protect you, no matter what comes." Outside, the forest whispered, alive with unseen watchers and predators. But inside the cabin, in that fragile moment between chaos and calm, we found a tenuous peace, a bond forged in danger, trust, and the slow, undeniable pull of fate. And I knew, with a certainty that made my chest ache, that whatever lay ahead, whatever threats, secrets, or battles, there was no turning back. Not from Cale, not from the world he had revealed. not from the bond that had claimed us both. The fire crackled, shadows danced across the walls, and two lives, human and Lycan, stood together on the edge of a destiny neither fully understood, yet neither could deny. The forest waited dark and silent for the next strike. But for now, we had each other. The storm had passed, leaving the forest cloaked in a damp, silvery fog. Outside, the world seemed suspended in a timeless hush, the only movement the gentle sway of dripping branches. Inside the cabin, Cale moved quietly, collecting water from the small tap while I lingered near the fire, trying to process everything that had happened the night before. I could still feel the echo of his power in my chest, the raw, predatory strength, the golden eyes that seemed to pierce straight into me. And yet beneath it all, there had been vulnerability, an honesty he rarely showed anyone. I began hesitantly, watching him fill a small pot. You fought them, but you didn't tell me why. About the pack, about being chosen. I need to know, Kyle. I need to understand. He froze mid-motion, hand gripping the pot. The muscles in his jaw tightened as he exhaled slowly, finally setting the vessel down. He leaned against the counter, eyes dark, distant, and yet fixed on me. Not everyone is ready for the truth, he murmured. Most would run, scream, never look back. You might have stayed anyway, but his voice faltered for a fraction of a second, and I realized he was trying to gauge whether I could bear what he was about to reveal. I'm ready, I said quietly, stepping closer. I don't just want to survive this. I want to understand you, your world, your past, everything that makes you Cale. He studied me, golden eyes searching, and then finally nodded. All right, he said softly, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. His posture was tense, but there was a subtle ease to it now, a willingness to share what he rarely did. My pack, he began, voice low, was everything to me once. Territory, hierarchy, bloodlines, rules older than anyone remembers. They taught me strength, discipline, survival, but they also taught fear. Fear of betrayal, fear of outsiders, fear of weakness, and He shook his head slightly, jaw tight. I failed them, or I chose to leave. Depends on who tells the story. I sat down beside him, careful not to crowd him, but close enough to let him know I was there. You didn't fail, I said softly. You survived. You made choices that kept you alive, and here you are, with me. That matters. Cale's eyes softened, a flicker of something almost like relief passing through them. Most don't see it that way, he murmured. Leaving the pack meant exile. It meant they hunted me, not for revenge, not entirely, but because I carried what they couldn't control. Something in my blood. Something they feared. What is it? I asked, heart hammering. He hesitated, jaw tightening again. It's complicated. A gift and a curse. A lineage tied to power older than memory. Some call it a blood bond, some a curse. Whatever the name, it marks me. It makes me a target. And it makes me dangerous. I swallowed hard. Dangerous. To others or to yourself? Cale's gaze flicked to me, golden eyes intense, and I felt the weight of his history pressing down on us both. To anyone who gets too close, he said quietly. To anyone who cares, and I haven't been close to anyone for years. I thought I never would be again. I reached out, brushing a hand lightly against his arm. You're not alone anymore, I whispered. I'm here, and I won't run. For a moment, the walls he had built seemed to tremble. His head dipped slightly, shoulders shifting as though unburdening a fraction of the weight he carried. You don't understand what you're stepping into, he admitted. You could be hurt or worse, and still you choose to stay. I choose you, I said firmly, voice unwavering. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because something in me knows this is right. Dangerous, yes. Terrifying, yes. But right. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time, I saw the man beneath the predator, the Cale who had been shaped by pain, loss and exile, yet still carried the possibility of tenderness. You're, he began, voice low and rough, braver than anyone I've ever known. I'm not brave, I said softly. I'm stubborn. But stubbornness can be useful sometimes. A faint smile tugged at his lips, almost ghost-like. Useful, yes. Reckless. Absolutely. He exhaled, leaning back, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. I've protected myself for years, avoided attachments, avoided danger I couldn't control. But I can't stay away from you, no matter how much I want to. My chest tightened, a mix of longing, fear, and undeniable attraction. Then don't, I whispered. Stay, let me be part of it. Part of you. Kyle's gaze softened, the firelight reflecting off the gold in his eyes. You might be the first human who ever really understood me. he murmured. Or at least, the first to reach past the armor. I felt a thrill at his words, though tempered by the knowledge of the danger still lurking beyond the cabin walls. Then let me stay, I said, heart pounding. Let me help you. Even if it's just being here, watching, listening. He leaned back, studying me for a long moment, then finally gave a slow nod. All right, he said quietly. But you must understand, nothing will be easy. The forest doesn't forgive mistakes. The pack doesn't forgive weakness. And me, I can't promise you a normal life. I don't want normal, I said softly, taking a tentative step closer. I want this. I want you, and whatever comes with it. Kyle's eyes glimmered, golden and fierce, and he reached out, brushing a hand against my cheek with surprising tenderness. You're impossible, he murmured, and reckless. And yet, somehow, I can't resist it. I swallowed, pulse racing, heart fluttering in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Then don't, I whispered. Not now. Not ever. He gave a ghost of a smile, eyes softening as he leaned slightly closer. The air between us crackled with tension, longing, and an unspoken acknowledgement that this bond, dangerous, fated and wild, was growing stronger with every word. Every touch, every shared secret, outside, the forest whispered its ancient warnings. But inside, in the fragile warmth of the cabin, we shared a fragile, unspoken understanding. Whatever the world threw at us, we would face it together. For the first time, I saw not just the predator, not just the shifter, but the man beneath, the Kyle who had been broken, exiled, hunted, and yet capable of tenderness, of connection, of love. And I knew, without a doubt, that whatever lay ahead, whatever packs, curses, or predators, the bond between us was only beginning to claim us. The night stretched on, mist curling against the cabin windows, and I felt a shiver of anticipation, fear, and desire. For the first time, I understood that the danger was not a reason to flee, it was a reason to stay. With him, always. The morning light was pale and weak as it seeped through the misty windows, casting long, trembling shadows across the cabin floor. Outside, the forest seemed deceptively calm, but I could feel the tension in the air, the residue of the night's danger, lingering like smoke. Cale sat near the fire, his posture rigid, jaw tight. Even in the fragile quiet of morning, his golden eyes glimmered with unease. I saw them last night, he said finally, voice low, almost brooding. The hunters. They're cleverer than I thought, and they've learned from their mistakes. I moved closer, trying to read him, though the air between us was heavy with unspoken tension. Kyle, I want to help. I need to be part of this, with you. We can't keep pretending I'm just a spectator. He shook his head sharply, the movement brisk, controlled. No, he said, voice edged with warning. You're human. You don't understand what's at stake. You're not equipped for this world. And He cut himself off, jaw tightening as though trying to swallow the words. You what? I asked, heart pounding. Kyle, tell me! His eyes darkened, and for the first time, I saw the walls he had kept around himself rise higher than ever. I can't let you face them, he said finally. Not directly, not yet. Not ever. If I can stop it, I should have left you alone from the start. I felt my chest tighten. Left me alone? After everything? After you told me I was your mate? Cale's gaze faltered, pain flashing across his features. Yes, he whispered. Because being near me is dangerous. Because this world, my world, it doesn't forgive attachments. Not when the stakes are this high. I could feel anger rising, mingled with fear and a deep, aching hurt. So all this time, everything we've shared, it meant nothing? I demanded, voice trembling. The trust, the bond between us. His hand shot out, catching mine before I could pull away, and the intensity in his golden eyes pinned me in place. It means everything, he said, voice low but urgent. You have no idea how much. But love, desire, connection. None of that makes you safe here. You have to understand that. I pulled my hand back, trying to steady my racing pulse. You don't get to decide that for me, I said firmly, though my throat tightened. I chose to be here with you, no matter the danger, and I won't let fear drive me away. Kyle's expression softened slightly, but the tension remained. He ran a hand through his hair, as though trying to reconcile the predator within him with the man who wanted to protect me. I know, he admitted, and it terrifies me. Because everything in me wants to keep you close, but everything else tells me I can't. I failed once before, lost people I cared about, and I won't let that happen to you." The words struck me harder than any attack ever could. I could feel the weight of his past pressing down on us, the history of loss and betrayal that had forged the walls around his heart. And yet, despite the fear, despite the danger, I felt my own heart pushing back, demanding to be part of his life, his world, no matter the cost. "I'm not leaving," I said softly, "and I won't let you push me away, Kale, not now. Not ever." His golden eyes softened, the predator within him retreating just enough to reveal the man beneath. The Kyle who had been broken, hunted, and exiled, yet still capable of tenderness. "You're stubborn," he murmured. "Brave, reckless, and completely impossible." I couldn't help the small, defiant smile that tugged at my lips. "And you're impossible too," I whispered. "But somehow, I can't resist you." Kyle exhaled slowly, a low rumble vibrating through his chest, and for a heartbeat, he seemed to relax. "Then we're both doomed," he said softly, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. Before I could respond, a sudden noise outside snapped us both to attention, a sharp crack of a branch, a low growl carried on the wind. Kale's body stiffened instantly, golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim morning light. "They're back," he said, voice tight. "And they're not alone this time." My heart pounded as I realized the hunters hadn't given up. They had returned, stronger, more organized, more determined, and this time, we were vulnerable. Kale moved to the door, fluid and silent, his senses stretched to their limits. I watched, torn between fear and awe, as he scanned the forest, claws extending just slightly, teeth bared in a warning. The shadows shifted, eyes glinting with malicious intelligence. And I realized that the danger wasn't just outside the cabin, it was also inside. "Threatening to test our bond, they'll try to draw me out," Kale muttered, voice low. "And if they can't, they'll use you. They'll threaten you, manipulate you, exploit your fear, and His jaw tightened. "I can't let them." "Not ever." I stepped closer, brushing a hand against his arm. "Then we face it together," I said firmly. "You don't have to protect me alone. I trust you, and I trust myself to stay with you." His golden eyes met mine, intense and unwavering. "You're impossible," he said again, a faint note of admiration and exasperation in his voice. "And stubborn, and I can't stay away, not from you." For a long moment, silence stretched between us, broken only by the distant rustle of the forest and the crackle of the fire. And in that silence, I felt the weight of our bond, the fated connection that neither of us could deny, the dangerous pull that had claimed us both, and the unspoken acknowledgement that whatever came next, we would face it together. Kyle exhaled, a low rumble that carried both relief and lingering tension. "We need a plan," he said finally, voice steady but serious. "They'll come again, stronger, smarter. And this time, I might have to show you things you're not ready for." "I'm ready," I whispered, heart racing. "I trust you, and I won't leave, no matter what." He studied me, golden eyes softening, then gave a faint, almost imperceptible nod. "Then we fight together," he said quietly. "But you must remember, this world doesn't forgive weakness, and neither do I." I swallowed, understanding the weight of his words. "I'm not weak," I said firmly, "and I'm not leaving." Outside, the forest waited, silent and foreboding. But inside the cabin, we had each other. And for the first time, I realized that no matter the hunters, the curses, or the dangers lurking in the shadows, our bond was growing stronger. Fierce, wild, and unbreakable, and I knew, with a thrill that mingled fear and longing, that whatever came next, whatever betrayal, attack, or revelation, the pull between us was only getting stronger. The shadows in the forest stirred. The wind whispered warnings, and Kale's golden eyes glimmered with both power and vulnerability. Together, human and Lycan, we stood on the edge of a future neither could fully predict. Yet neither wanted to escape. The night was coming, and with it, the first true test of our trust. Night fell like a suffocating blanket over the cabin, thick mist curling through the trees, muffling every sound but the occasional drip of rain from swollen branches. Inside, the fire had dwindled to glowing embers, casting long, trembling shadows across the walls. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped tightly in my lap, listening to the wind sigh through the cracks in the wooden frame. Kale paced near the window, his posture taut with controlled tension. Golden eyes glimmered in the dim light, every sense stretched to its limit. He had gone through his rituals, prepared traps, scents, warnings, everything to ensure the hunters wouldn't breach our fragile sanctuary. Yet, the air vibrated with an almost tangible danger, a foreboding promise that the night would not pass quietly. "They're close," he muttered, voice low, almost a growl, closer than before. "Smarter, stronger, and they're not just after me now." I felt a cold prickle run down my spine. "Not just you?" I asked. Cale glanced at me, expression unreadable. "You," he said finally, jaw tight. "They'll use anything. Fear, hesitation, even your curiosity. Anything to lure me out, and I—" He cut himself off, his golden eyes darkening. "I can't let them take you," I swallowed, heart pounding. "Then I stay," I said softly. "With you, no matter what. You've protected me this far. Let me help. Let me stand with you." His jaw tightened, a flicker of conflict crossing his sharp features. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "Being near me puts you in danger, real mortal danger. And I—" His voice faltered for a heartbeat. "I can't risk losing you." "Not now, not ever. I'm not leaving," I whispered. "And I won't let fear dictate our bond. I trust you." The words seemed to anchor him momentarily, golden eyes softening just enough to reveal the man beneath the predator. But before either of us could linger in that fragile calm, a sound shattered the stillness, a low, deliberate growl from the woods. The mist shifted violently, shadows twisting as three massive forms emerged, their eyes glinting with malicious intelligence. "They're here," Cale growled, muscles coiling like springs, claws extending in a subtle metallic snap. "And this time, I can't hold back." I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering, yet rooted by an unshakable pull toward him. The predator in him stirred, golden eyes alight, the aura of danger wrapping around him like a tangible force. And yet beneath it, I could feel the same bond that had drawn me to him since the first night I found him in the rain. A pulse, a rhythm, a connection that neither of us could deny. The first attacker lunged through the fog. Cale moved like lightning, intercepting with supernatural precision, claws raking the intruder across the shoulder. The creature howled, retreating, but another surged forward, teeth bared, faster than I could follow. "Cale!" I shouted, fear piercing my chest. He turned, eyes locking onto mine, voice low but fierce. "Stay back! Don't come closer!" The warning barely registered before the second attacker managed a swipe toward me. Panic surged, but instinct took over. I ducked, narrowly avoiding the claws, and something primal inside me screamed to act, to fight. Cale lunged, intercepting the blow with a fluid, deadly grace. The sound of claws against flesh echoed through the mist, but Cale's movements were controlled, precise, striking, dodging, protecting me. I watched, heart pounding, fear mingled with awe. Every motion he made radiated power, danger, and a kind of beauty I had never imagined. He was lethal and protective all at once, a predator tempered by a fragile humanity. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the attackers faltered. Cale's growl rumbled through the cabin, low and resonant, sending them scattering back into the mist, disappearing as silently as they had come. The forest fell silent again, the only sound my own ragged breathing and the faint crackle of dying embers. Cale shifted back into human form, claws retracting, muscles relaxing just enough to remind me that the danger wasn't over, only postponed. "You," I whispered, moving toward him despite the tremor in my limbs. "You protected me. Again, you saved me." Cale's gaze softened, golden eyes reflecting both exhaustion and something deeper, more vulnerable. He stepped closer, brushing a damp strand of hair from my face with a gentleness that made my chest ache. "You're impossible," he murmured. "Brave, stubborn, reckless, and utterly mine. You don't know what that means to me." I reached out, fingers brushing against his hand. "Then show me," I whispered. "Not just with words. Show me the bond, the trust. Let me be part of it." For a long moment, silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken emotion, fear, and desire. Then Cale's lips curved into a small, almost tentative smile, the predator within him softening just enough to reveal the man beneath. "You have no idea," he said quietly. "How much it terrifies me. How much I want to keep you close, but everything I am screams that I shouldn't. And yet," he let his hand rest lightly against mine, "I can't resist. Not you, not this." I felt the pull of him, Wild, magnetic, undeniable. And without thinking, I stepped closer, closing the distance between us, letting my forehead rest against his chest, feeling the warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Then we face it together," I whispered. "No matter what comes? No matter what dangers?" Kale's hands settled lightly on my waist, holding me in a protective, intimate embrace. "Together," he murmured, voice low, golden eyes softening to something human, something tender. "Always together." The wind howled outside, carrying whispers from the forest and shadows of predators lurking just beyond our fragile sanctuary. But inside the cabin, in the fragile warmth of shared vulnerability and unspoken trust, we found a sanctuary of our own, a moment of connection forged through danger, fear, and the undeniable pull of destiny. The night would come again, and with it new threats. But for now, in that quiet, fragile intimacy, we had each other. Human and Lycan, mate and mate, bonded by something stronger than fear, stronger than circumstance. And for the first time, I understood that no matter the hunters, the curses, or the dangers waiting in the shadows, the bond between us was unbreakable, wild, and undeniable. Whatever the forest held, whatever battles lay ahead, we would face it side by side because we belonged to each other. The forest was alive with tension as night fell once more. Thick fog curling like serpents through the tree line. Every shadow seemed a threat, every rustle of leaves a warning. Inside the cabin, Kale moved silently, golden eyes scanning the misted darkness beyond the windows, muscles coiled, ready to strike at a moment's notice. I sat close to the fire, hands pressed together, heart pounding. The events of the past nights had left me exhausted, but I refused to leave Kale's side. Every instinct screamed that this would be the final confrontation, that whatever waited outside would not relent, and that this night might force us to reveal everything about ourselves. "They're coming," Kale said softly, voice tense. "And this time, they won't hold back. We have no choice but to face them head on." I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. "Then we face it together," I said quietly. "Whatever comes, we don't run. We don't hide. We stay, side by side." Kale's gaze softened for the briefest moment, golden eyes flickering with something almost human, trust, hope, and a glimmer of something unspoken. "You're certain?" he asked, voice low, rough with emotion. "Absolutely," I replied. "I trust you. I trust us," he exhaled, a low rumble that carried both relief and lingering tension. "Then stay close," he said. "And whatever happens, don't panic." The first movement outside was subtle, a ripple in the fog, a shifting shadow. Then another, and suddenly they were upon us. Figures materialized from the mist, 3 attackers moving with precision and intent. Kale's body tensed, muscles rippling as he stepped in front of me, protective and imposing. The air vibrated with the low growl of predators preparing to strike. I felt the pull between us, fated, magnetic, unbreakable, and knew that the bond we had nurtured through whispered secrets, shared fear and growing desire was about to be tested like never before. Kale shifted, muscles elongating beneath his skin, claws extending in a metallic snap. His golden eyes glowed in the firelight, reflecting both fury and fierce determination. The attackers faltered, recognizing the lethal predator he became in an instant. "You won't take her," Kale growled, a sound that seemed to shake the mist itself. The fight erupted in a flurry of movement, claws flashing, shadows lunging, teeth bared. Kale moved with terrifying grace, intercepting every strike aimed at me, keeping me shielded while asserting dominance over the attackers. Each movement radiated power, precision, and protection. My chest heaved as I watched him, part fear, part awe, entirely entranced. There was something primal about the way he moved, something magnetic and dangerous that drew me in even as the threat loomed large. But then, one of the attackers broke free of Kale's grip and lunged directly at me. Instinct screamed, and I froze, too close, too vulnerable. Kale's growl split the air, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to shake the forest itself. In a flash, he intercepted the strike, claws raking across the attacker with controlled, precise power. "Stay back!" he snarled, voice vibrating with warning and fury. "Now!" I stepped closer, heart hammering, hand brushing against his arm. "I'm not leaving," I whispered. "I'm with you." His golden eyes softened, even as his body remained taut and ready. "You're impossible," he muttered, but there was warmth behind the words. "And I can't bear to be without you." The attackers faltered, realizing that the predator before them was not only powerful, but unwavering in his protection of me. Kale moved like a shadow, striking with precision, evading with supernatural agility and asserting dominance until the intruders, realizing they were outmatched, melted back into the mist. Silence fell again, broken only by the ragged breaths of both of us. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for another strike that never came. Kale shifted back to human form, muscles relaxing, claws retracting. His golden eyes met mine, and for the first time in days, I saw him fully, vulnerable, human, and deeply, achingly present. "You're alive," I whispered, moving closer despite the lingering tension. "We're alive." He exhaled slowly, a low rumble that carried both relief and lingering intensity. "Thanks to you," he murmured. "You didn't run. You didn't hide, and somehow you made me stronger, made me braver." I felt a warmth spread through me at his words, a fragile yet undeniable connection. "You're my mate, Kale," I said softly. "Not just because of destiny, but because I choose you. Always." His lips curved into a small, tentative smile, golden eyes softening with emotion. "You have no idea what that means to me," he whispered. "To have you here, with me, alive, choosing me." I reached out, fingers brushing against his cheek, feeling the warmth, the pulse, the unspoken bond that had grown stronger with every danger faced, every secret shared. "I'm here," I said softly. "And I'm not going anywhere." "Not ever." Kale's gaze darkened with a mix of intensity and longing. "Then neither am I," he murmured. He stepped closer, hands resting gently on my waist, golden eyes locked onto mine. "From now on, we face everything together. No hiding, no running, no fear. Only us." The fire crackled softly, shadows dancing across the walls as the forest outside whispered with ancient warnings. But inside the cabin, human and Lycan, mate and mate, we found a fragile, unbreakable sanctuary in each other. Kale leaned closer, and I felt the pull between us. Magnetic, fated, undeniable. "You're mine," he whispered, voice low, rough with emotion, "and I'm yours. No matter what comes." I pressed my forehead to his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "And I'm not afraid," I said softly. "Not with you." The forest waited, dark and watchful, for the next threat. But inside, the bond between us had been tested and forged anew, stronger, wilder, and unbreakable. Whatever the future held, whatever danger awaited, we would face it together. And for the first time I knew that no force, human, shifter, or fate itself, could tear us apart, because we were mates, fated, bound, and finally, unbreakably united. The first light of dawn broke over the horizon, spilling soft, golden rays through the mist that still clung stubbornly to the treetops. The forest exhaled in silence as if the night's tension had been a held breath finally released. Inside the cabin, the air was warm and still, the fire reduced to smoldering embers that glowed faintly against the worn wooden floor. I sat beside Kyle, his arm wrapped protectively around me, the lingering adrenaline of last night's battle finally giving way to quiet exhaustion. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to breathe fully, to feel safe, to let the edges of my fear dissolve in the warmth of his presence. "You kept me alive," I whispered, voice soft but steady, leaning into the comfort of his chest. "Not just from them, but from everything else, too." Kale's golden eyes softened as he pressed a gentle kiss to the top of my head. "You kept me alive, too," he murmured. "From the solitude, the exile, the part of me that thought no one could ever understand. You pulled me back from the edge, from the predator I thought I had to be forever." I smiled faintly, resting my hand over his. "I think we saved each other," I said. "Even with all the danger, the darkness, it brought us together. And now I wouldn't change a thing." Kale's gaze met mine, intensity and vulnerability mingling in his golden eyes. "You're mine," he whispered. "Not because of fate alone, but because I chose you. Every choice I make now, every breath, every heartbeat, is yours. Only yours." A warmth spread through me, deeper than anything I had ever felt. The bond between us, the pull that had started as curiosity, evolved through danger, and solidified through trust, had become a force I could no longer deny. "And I'm yours," I said firmly, voice unwavering. "Completely. No matter what comes." He reached up, brushing a strand of damp hair from my face, and for a moment, the predator in him receded completely, leaving only the man I had come to know and love, flawed, fierce, and breathtakingly real. "Then we start anew," he said softly. "Leave the shadows behind, or at least make them ours, not ours against us." The words made me smile, a quiet, contented smile that came from somewhere deep inside. "I like that," I said. "Us, not against the world, but together, whatever it holds." Kyle's lips curved into a faint, almost playful smile, and he tugged me closer. "We'll have to see if the world agrees," he said, a teasing glint in his golden eyes. "But if it tries, I'll fight for us. Always." I leaned my forehead against his, feeling the steady warmth of his breath, the slow rhythm of his heartbeat that mirrored my own. "Then we're unstoppable," I whispered, letting the weight of the night and the trials we'd endured dissolve into a fragile peace. Outside, the forest stirred gently in the morning breeze, dew sparkling on leaves and mist curling lazily around ancient trunks. The world was still wild, dangerous, and untamed, just as it had always been. But inside we had carved a sanctuary, fragile yet enduring, a haven built from trust, love, and an unshakable bond that no predator, curse, or darkness could sever. Kale shifted slightly, golden eyes glimmering with something almost like hope. "We have a long road ahead," he said quietly. "Challenges, hunters. The pack, but I don't care anymore. Whatever comes, we face it together. I'll make sure of it." I nodded, leaning against him, comforted by the certainty in his voice. "Together," I echoed, feeling the word resonate deep within me. It wasn't just a promise, it was a lifeline, a declaration, a choice we had made together through danger, fear, and the slow burn of trust and desire. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future with Kyle, a life that might include sunlight on our faces, laughter echoing through the forest, quiet nights spent side by side, and a love that was as fated as it was fiercely earned. "I never thought," I murmured, voice soft, "that I'd find this. Someone who sees me, protects me, believes in me, in us." Kale's hand cupped my cheek gently, thumb brushing across my skin. "You've always been extraordinary," he said. "Even when you didn't see it, even when the world turned its back, and now you'll never have to face it alone again." I felt a shiver of warmth and longing as he pulled me closer, forehead to forehead, our breaths mingling in quiet intimacy. The cabin was still, the forest beyond holding its ancient, wild secrets, and for the first time, the danger, the fear, the uncertainty all felt secondary to the bond between us. "Kale," I whispered, voice trembling slightly, "I love you. Completely. No conditions, no reservations. I'm yours." His golden eyes darkened with emotion, fierce and tender all at once. "And I love you," he replied, voice low, rough with feeling. "I have for longer than I realized. You're my mate, my anchor, my home." We stayed that way, wrapped in each other's presence, as the dawn painted the forest in soft golds and silvers. The world outside remained untamed, full of danger, secrets, and mysteries we hadn't yet uncovered. But for the first time, it felt like it belonged to us as much as it had once threatened to consume us. Kyle pressed a soft kiss to my forehead, a promise, a seal, a whisper of everything we had endured and everything yet to come. "We'll face it all," he murmured. "Together. Always." I smiled faintly, heart swelling, voice steady. "Always." The sun rose higher, casting light through the mist, illuminating the forest and the cabin alike. And as the warmth spread through the room, I felt a rare, profound peace. For the first time since my world had tilted into chaos, I was certain of one thing. With Kale, with us, I had found my home, fated, bound, and fiercely alive. We stepped into the dawn together, ready for whatever the world, the pack, or destiny might throw at us next, because we had each other. And that was enough.